Hey guys, welcome to Real Canadian Condo Disputes, where the condo drama gets real. Condo boards, condo rules, and real owner battles from across Canada. If you live in a condo, or you might one day, you need to hear these stories. Let's jump in.
So what happens when the neighbor you share a wall with becomes a danger to the entire building? Well, we're about to dive into a real-life legal case that shows just how fast condo living can turn into a total nightmare and what happens when the rules just aren't enough.
You know, living in a condo, you're part of a community, right? You share walls, hallways, you see each other all the time. But what do you do when one person's behavior completely shatters that peace? This isn't some hypothetical situation. We're looking at a real case here, and it's a chilling playbook for how badly things can go wrong.
This whole story plays out like a movie, all inside one condo building. You've got the condo corporation, they're trying to keep everything in order. Then you have the unit owner, who's the landlord in this situation, and right at the center of it all, a tenant whose actions would push every single person to their absolute breaking point.
Okay, so let's get the cast of characters straight. First up, you've got the condo corporation. Think of them as the rule enforcers, the ones responsible for safety and order. Then there's owner A, the landlord. And at the very heart of this storm is tenant B, the resident whose behavior is about to unleash total chaos.
And like a lot of these disasters, it all started pretty small. The tenant had only been there a month when the first complaints about crazy noise and smoking started rolling in. When the condo management reached out to the owner, she basically just asked for patience. She said, "Hey, my tenant just needs a little time to adjust." But as it turns out, time was the one thing they didn't have.
Yeah, adjusting is not what happened. Things didn't just get a little worse, they went from a nuisance to something genuinely dangerous. And the timeline of events here is pretty shocking. It shows you just how fast a simple noise complaint can spiral into a full-blown crisis.
I mean, just look at how quickly this all went downhill. We go from noise in January to this. By February, security finds a knife and blood in the unit. Just 2 months later, in April, the tenant is physically assaulting security staff. By May, he's seen wandering naked in the common areas, and then, in July, the absolute breaking point. He threatens to get a gun and shoot security. Remember, this is all happening in a residential building where people live with their families.
And this wasn't just, a few bad days. We're talking about 18 formal incident reports filed in only 7 months. Can you even imagine the level of constant fear and disruption that the residents and the staff were living with every single day?
So at this point, the condo corporation's hands are tied. They have no other choice but to take legal action. But that moves the fight from the hallways into a hearing room, and it brings up a massive question. Who is actually responsible for stopping all this? And this right here, this is the real heart of the issue. When a situation has gone so far beyond noise complaints, we're talking physical assault and threats of gun violence. What power does a body like a condo tribunal actually have? Can it really solve a problem this dangerous?
Well, the answer comes down to a really important legal idea: jurisdiction. See, the tribunal can totally deal with things like noise, smoke, general nuisance stuff, but it has zero power to rule on criminal matters, things like assault or threats of violence. That stuff belongs in the courts. So the tribunal was basically legally handcuffed. It could only address a tiny fraction of the real problem.
And this is where the spotlight suddenly swings over to the landlord, owner A. Because this case wasn't just about what the tenant did, it was about what the owner didn't do. The law is crystal clear here. It says an owner has to take all reasonable steps to make sure their tenant is following the rules.
So, what in the world does all reasonable steps actually mean? Well, it's definitely not a passive thing. It means you can't just sit back, cross your fingers, and hope the problem disappears. It means you have to take proactive, real, and ongoing actions to fix the situation. Just forwarding a complaint email, that is not going to cut it.
And this is exactly where the tribunal found that the owner failed, big time. She waited way too long to take any real action. Her main strategy was to just forward the complaint emails to the tenant, which clearly wasn't working. She never followed up to see if things got better, and crucially, she didn't even bother to ask for the official incident reports that would have shown her just how terrifying the situation had become.
All right, so after all of that, the tribunal finally made its decision. Let's break down what the final order was, and more importantly, what we can all learn from this absolute nightmare scenario, especially if you're a condo owner.
The verdict was pretty straightforward. First, the tenant was ordered to immediately stop all the noise and follow the rules. But here's the key part. The tribunal also ordered the owner to take all reasonable steps to make sure that happens. And just to hammer home the point about shared responsibility, both the owner and the tenant were ordered to split the cost of the condo's $200 filing fee.
So, if there is one thing you take away from this entire story, let it be this. If you rent out your condo, your job doesn't end the day the lease is signed. You are legally on the hook for making sure your tenant follows the rules. Saying I didn't know or just ignoring it is not a defense.
Okay, so if this case is a perfect example of what not to do, what should a landlord do? The lessons here are super clear. Number 1, act right away on the very first complaint. 2, document every single communication. 3, be proactive. Don't wait for management to send you reports. Go ask for them. And 4, do more than just forward an email. Pick up the phone, engage, and show that you are actively trying to solve the problem.
Honestly, this case is such a powerful warning. This owner probably thought she was doing enough, but the tribunal and the law completely disagreed. So it leaves us with one last question for any condo landlord out there. You've seen what happens when you fail to take all reasonable steps. The real question is, are you prepared to?
Thanks for watching Real Canadian Condo Disputes. If you found this breakdown useful, hit like, subscribe, and share your own condo experience in the comments.